Seer Show is a live broadcast of truth seekers and believers, empowering the evolution of consciousness. Raphael and Celeste will dive deeper than the mainstream media while answering the mind's deeper questions and transforming conversations. They will have unique guest speakers who will share knowledge, tools, and techniques to create coherence in our mind, body, and spirit.
Good morning.
Good morning and good evening from Australia.
Yes, how are you today?
We are always good. We've actually had beautiful sunshine, then thunders, then sunshine, and then extraordinary rainbows over Queensland. So it's very dramatic here.
You know, it sounds like the weather is just like my co-host.
Yeah. You never know what to expect.
But it's a beautiful thing, right? We have to accept everything that comes at us, and then it's how we react to it, right?
That's right. That's right.
I love your sweater, by the way.
Well, we are talking about blood today.
What?
So obviously I had to be the dramatic one that is going to wear the dramatic red going into those colors. I think this episode is going to really refresh people's minds in this fascinating world of going into microorganisms and seeing the world that is so tiny under a microscope. And we often forget about how fascinating this world is, even from zematic, shapes and forms of sound and vibration. So I can't wait. This is going to be amazing, Raphael.
Well, we do have an amazing guest who you happen to be friends with, right?
Yes.
So Michelle Rota, right? What an amazing human being. Michelle is a functional health practitioner and accountability coach who founded the Bio Coach. I just love that name, the Bio Coach. Think about it, a health coaching business. And when you think about all that she's done, she's personalized the blood work. It's an analysis alongside a comprehensive system of questionnaires to dive deep and to connect the dots. Imagine you're connecting all the dots with each of her clients to specifically deal with their own biology. My God. Holistically, through tailored nutritional movement and lifestyle interventions, along with coaching and accountability to form lifelong habits, this is how she helps people. Can I tell you, I am so excited to bring Michelle on. Let's welcome her on. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Hi, it's so great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you good evening to Karen.
Yes. We are a few hours away from each other, but we're still experiencing that same weather. So yes, it's been tumultuous, but I'm here. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
One of the things, and you said you're hours away, but we're really all here at the same time. It's just that space and time continuum, if you will, right?
That's right. We're all one.
Energies together.
Correct.
So Celeste tells me that we're going to be talking about blood, and I think that's why she's wearing a bright, beautiful red top, right?
Yeah.
And blood. We don't think about it, do we? Not until we get cut, or we have to have surgery, or we have to have different things, or someone is asking us to donate. But the blood really tells so many stories, right? And I know that you're an expert in dealing with this, and this is how you help people by understanding their blood, right? So we'd love to hear more. I'm here to be educated by you. So thank you for being here.
No problems. Yes. So it's amazing just how much blood work can reveal what's happening within your body. Obviously, it's super personal. So this is why I really like to use it as a tool to be able to, really dive deep under the hood of what people, they come with symptoms, or they come with experiences, or, issues that they're having. And instead of kind of looking at more of a blanket overarching, how do we say, way of helping them, we're really able to look deep and look into the bloods to kind of really get a better idea and draw some better conclusions around what's really happening in their body. I really like to come from everything from like a functional standpoint. So I look at the system really holistically. So nothing is ever in isolation, and no symptom or issue is ever really in isolation anyway. Like pretty much most systems in the body are always working together. So something that might come up in one system is absolutely directly related to other systems. So we have to look at everything as a whole, and from there really work out, where are these patterns forming, and what is actually sort of showing on a personal level. So yeah, that's where the blood really comes into play. I like to also pair this with sort of a health questionnaire as well. So I don't just look at the bloods, like that's a really good objective marker, but I like to also really talk to clients and talk to them about, okay, what have you been feeling? What's your current diet like? What traumas you might have in the past. And I might talk about a lot of different things that might seem completely unrelated to, their ailment or their issue that they're coming to me with. So it's really about drawing subjective analysis of what they're going through, any sort of symptoms and signs, how they're living their life currently, and then I match that with what's being shown objectively in their blood to kind of get a better understanding of where things are at the moment and how we can kind of move them through that, really.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And the blood doesn't lie as well. I mean, the blood really then tells the truth, matching that up with the questionnaire. That would be quite confronting for the clients themselves sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Like I like to preface when I go through people's bloods, because the way I look at them is using sort of functional ranges. So this is an optimal range that we want to see people's markers within. So when you go, to your GP or you go and get a standard blood test, you'll see on that particular form, whether it's normal or whether you're in that particular range. Now, those ranges are very much based off the pathology's averages. So you'll see that, who are the typical people that go to get their blood tests? It's generally if you're feeling sick, right? You go to the doctor because you're sick. So you go get your blood test, and then they're taking the averages of the sick people and saying, okay, these are you're normal because you're within the average of the range of the sick person. So what we do is we look at it from like a functional range. This is an optimal range that we want to see the body in, and they're much tighter. So very often, and in pretty much all cases, I'll find like 20 plus markers that are probably out of range. And I kind of let everybody know before I go through them, look, don't freak out. This is completely normal. What it does is just actually show me the patterns. So having these in out of range actually just really helps me further refine the pattern of what is actually going on. So it's not like an alarming thing, but then we sort of work to bring them back into this functional range over time.
How long can that take? If you say you have a client, you discovered through the FBC, so like a full blood count, or a CBC, which is the complete blood count. These are like the names they use here in Australia, the very typical panels that they get. And you go through a diet to improve. What are we looking at? 6 months later, a year later? Like, how does blood change and then really reflect the changes you've created internally?
Yeah, it really depends on what markers are out, and it depends on where the client is at in their journey. So how far out of range are you, or how long have you had this issue for? You've got to remember, like a lot of the issues I come up with really start in the gut. So most kind of protocols we put out all around gut health. So we got to understand that it's taken years and years to get to where we are when it comes to this gut health in a lot of senses. Like some things can be more acute, but in a lot of times it's sometimes years. And so to really help and remediate that, it generally can take a little amount of time. So I don't work with anyone less than 3 months, and generally it can be longer. It can be 6 months. It can even be to 2 years. It just depends how far the needle is pushed in either direction, and sort of how much, work, I suppose, they want to put in, because it's not just about, here's a pharmaceutical drug, this is going to change your symptoms. We need to change sort of lifelong patterns. So that's where, things like diet come in, lifestyle, and like movement patterns. And even psychological stuff comes in as well. So, how stressed you get plays a huge role in your gut health, in your adrenal health. So, I mean, what job are you in? How can we move you away from that? Like, there's some really ingrained patterns depending on where each person is. Really depends on how long it can take. And it's not always, everything isn't always remediated in every sense, but we like to test again maybe in 3 months' time or a little longer, but you'll find that as we go along, I generally look at a lot of subjective markers week to week with my clients, so that we can see, are we trending in the right direction? Are we getting symptom relief? Are we getting little changes? Like I do a lot of talk around, what's your stool like? Has that changed? Someone's gone from having diarrhea daily, next minute they're having normal stools. That's a huge win. So as we're going through our program, I tend to do like a health index where I have my clients rate how they're going in that particular marker every week. So I can see at a glance, like if you're a 10, you're like a green light, that's great. You've got orange, and then you've got red if you're down below. So we can really see at a glance like how you're tracking on any of those markers over the weeks as we work together. So I really like to make sure I'm checking in with everyone, which is what I do pretty much on a weekly basis. And we can start to see where those trends are going. Are they up and down? Are we progressing better in this area, better in that area? How do we refine things as we go along the way? So that, generally happens on the journey.
Yeah. Michelle, let me ask you, a lot of people don't realize that both men and women have different blood levels, if you will, right? Like a woman is going to have less blood than a man. And why is that?
Are you talking about volume in the body itself,
Yes.
or are you talking about a different marker?
Oh,
You know what? I'm not really sure. It could just be physiological. Like, to be honest, I'm not really sure. But there are different markers for some particular tests that are different for females and males, because females aren't just small males, where we've got our own sort of hormones, we've got our own different functionality when it comes to certain things. So we have to look at that separately with certain blood markers.
Gotcha. One of the things, and you're talking about testing and all these different things. I did a program, when that Biggest Loser program used to be on TV. I did one with a doctor at my fitness facility, and we gave away $1,000 in the U.S. And this is, I don't know, almost 15 years ago, maybe a little long, almost like 18 years ago. And we did this thing to encourage people to lose weight. And one of the things that we did is, because she was a doctor and she was near me, we started with a blood test. So we read all the different markers. We read where they were, their cholesterol, all these different things. And yes, there was stool samples too, because everything tells a story, right? So to get to know where their levels were, she did every 2 weeks, they would go in for another blood test. And then she was able to mark everything. And people, because they started eating healthier, they started working out, their levels improved dramatically. Where some people were on certain medications, no longer had to be on them. And this was monitored by a doctor. And of course, I was kicking their butt because, I was working them out.
Yeah.
But we had such a great change in people. And, when you're able to not only see it from the outside, but you're able to see what it happens internally, that is huge. And you would imagine that most people saw the difference and they felt the difference, but not all of them got it. And a lot of them, after the program, the one that won the $1,000, she gained 61 pounds afterwards, and above what she was, because she lost like 68 pounds. And then right away, she went back to her old habits. She went back to doing the wrong thing. And her blood levels skyrocketed back up to a negative where it didn't help her. She only did it for the money instead
Yeah.
of the real thing, which is, wow, I'm healthier. I'm better. My blood tells me I'm healthier. I don't have to take this medication. And she went back to her old habits. So I think that a lot of times when we do these type of tests, you're doing it because the people that come to you want to make a difference. Is that right?
Correct. And that it really goes into that motivation piece. So, they've generally got a real reason to come and do this. They're at a point where other things have failed them, whether that's, other programs, or whether that's just their GP, or whether that's, in whatever way, they're generally at a point where they're wanting to try something a little different. And also they know that you can get results. So when the results, you can see the results and you get good success, people generally, they want to come to you. So, and that's a piece around the goal setting I do also. It's because I'm not just working with people from, but I also work a lot in accountability and a lot in coaching as well. So, it's all around that mindset piece. And I do a lot of education with my clients. I really explain what's going on. When I go through their blood markers, I let them know why that's important and how that actually changes what's happening in their body at any one stage, so that they really understand I'm not just giving you something for the sake of it. There's a reason for every single thing that we're doing throughout this. So yeah, absolutely. Like there has to be a real drive, or at least some motivation that's behind it, that involves, wanting to change for the long term, really.
I am fascinated with everything that we are talking about. But my biggest question to you is, how did you get into this blood? What motivated you? You're like, blood is the answer. What was that about? And how'd you get into it?
Yeah, it's an unusual journey. I was an exercise physiologist for a little while, and I worked in cardiac rehab. And I've always been really self-experimental with a lot of things. So I myself was very curious in what was happening with my blood work myself. I've had some diseases in my family. My father's diabetic. There's a lot of cholesterol and heart disease on my mother's side. And I've just been naturally curious. So I would always be getting my bloods done, reading up about it. I think a lot of the recent biohacking kind of trends that have come through also have piqued my interest, and I just love physiology. That was part of my study as well. So it's just I saw some practitioners who were doing this, and I thought it just made complete sense. And I really was like, I'm going to start doing this myself. I did my own protocols. I went and saw someone, and I'm like, I really love this. I'm going to, get into this. I'm going to learn how to do this. So that's how it all started.
I love that, because you did it for you first, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
Whenever we talk to anybody, that's how we become an expert, because we're so interested in it that it had to be fascinating too. I'm sure it still is, because that's where the deep dive comes into it, right? You needed to dive in it for you, right? I love that.
Yeah. And I'm just super curious. I think for myself, I'm really thorough. And I pride myself on that. I'm really like to make sure I'm ticking all the boxes when I'm looking with clients, but also with myself. I just find it super fascinating. So this is what I do in my spare time. This is actually my hobby as well as my profession. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So basically, the next person that will date you will secretly prick their finger, and that will be the analyst.
Yeah, maybe no.
it's so, when you said, Raphael, diving so deep, it is revealing who you are in the inside. And for the listeners and viewers, we're talking about blood analysis. It basically means separating each compound within your blood, and that in itself, you actually surrendering and letting a microscope look, like an MCV is a main cell volume test. I found that so interesting. And by the size and the color of the cells, you can see if there's infection or inflammation. If you've got liver disease, they're larger. If it's B12 deficiency, they're smaller. I mean, this is all happening in our body. And then the movement as well, going into the platelets, where you really sort of see, do I have blood clotting? Is there internal bleeding? Is so much information. And it's, I would say, you actually really not holding up the mirror, but it's really confronting to say, you might tell me this version of you, but this is what your blood is saying. So I think for anyone who wants to really change their life, their lifestyle, and understand, because if you want to improve anything in your life, you've got to understand yourself. You got to be connected to yourself. You got to trust yourself. And I believe, Michelle, this is why I've always been so fascinated, when we talk as friends, because we both ladies that also go down a lot of deep rabbit holes, but we do that because so people next to us in the coffee shop must just stare at us going, these ladies crazy. They're talking about red and white blood cells and neutrophils, things like that. But this is so fascinating. And I truly hope through this episode, people get more inspired again to maybe even buy your own microscope, but look deeper, look inside what's happening inside of our bodies.
Yeah. I'm sorry. But I don't know if people should go look at their own microscope. I think they're going to be overwhelmed, if you will. I think we need an expert, right? We need someone to guide us initially. So before I go look into a microscope, I'm gonna call Michelle and I'm gonna say, Michelle, what am I looking at? What is all this stuff? Because it looks like, I don't know, like beans.
This is all inside of us. Right? It's fascinating. Well, I mean, I was looking up microscopes just out of interest because I actually had one as a child and I was fascinated by it. And the most expensive one is 27 million. So, but for those who, like myself, who can't afford that, if you go into Nikon, but also National Geographics, they actually sell kits as well. And then you have someone like Michelle that can train you and coach you to understand yourself more. I think it's a fascinating world.
Yeah. I encourage everybody to reach out to Michelle for sure.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you can actually see. Like we haven't really touched on, I suppose, what we can look for in the blood itself. So, depending, because sometimes when I go and I look for what markers, I really need a certain amount of tests that come through, because these particular markers in combination is where we see the patterns. So, we can look for anything within the blood that doesn't seem like it might show up in the blood. So you might find everything to do with your gut health. So, do you have low stomach acid? Do you have parasites? We're getting clues if there's parasites. Is there some small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Is there a leaky gut? Are we seeing some of these sort of markers? Are you having an acute infection? Is there inflammation? What's your blood sugar doing? Is there lipid dysregulation? Are we trending into, that metabolic syndrome place, or, are we pre-diabetic? So you can start to see a lot of these patterns starting to form. And, kidney health, liver health, there's a lot of stuff whether, is your gallbladder working properly? Is your bile flowing well enough? So we can see all this stuff through the blood. It's not just, just typical, just a typical cholesterol panel or, what's happening. But I can see if you're stressed. Is your adrenals sort of fatigued? Are you having issues with your thyroid? It's really amazing when you use all these tests in tandem, we start to see all these patterns form and the systems around it, and how something might be happening in this system, but I can also see how it's affecting another system at the same time. So a lot of people come with, say, skin issues, or they're coming, with bloating or some irritable bowel symptoms, or they might come with something completely different, like I'm having pain in a certain area, I'm not sleeping very well, I can't lose weight. No matter what I've tried, I just can't lose weight, which is a big one. And we can sort of start to see why. But also, we ask the questions around what they've been doing with their life as well. But it's so interesting that you can really break down and see the smaller pieces, and typically everyone who has something will need to work on their gut at some stage.
Without a doubt. Let me ask you, before, I know Celeste is ready. She's ready to go. Go. But here's the question, right? And let's talk a little bit about sugar and the when we talk about, your sugar, blood sugar count and all these different things, how big of a factor does sugar play in our blood?
Well, I mean, it plays a big factor, but it depends also on what we're measuring it against. Or, you've got an athlete who is training 3 times a day, they're, performance driven. And then you've got someone who is sedentary, who sits at their desk all day, and who, they could eat exactly the same amount of sugar. And what is happening in the body when they're eating the sugar is two completely different things. So it's really around context. But when we're looking at, how much glucose or how much carbohydrate someone is consuming, and whether that's, appropriate for what they're doing or what they're trying to achieve.
Okay.
And I know that we shouldn't speak too far-fetched about seeing mental health disorders in the blood, but you have mentioned a few times now, if there's one point dysfunctioning, it connects with all the other organs or the other systems. And surely with new science coming out more and more, we are proving that, the whole typical thing, gut health is mental health. And I mean, surely you can't be in a good mood if your gut is leaking, or if you have severe inflammation. And I truly believe, to say on this episode, and this is a personal opinion, but if you're dealing with mental health issues, go and have your blood checked, because it will support it. It reflects what's going on in the body. Michelle, what would you have to say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Gut health plays a big role in mental health. I mean, we produce 95% of our serotonin in our gut. And you got to remember, the vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in the body, which is a direct link from the brain straight into our gut, which is, our enteric nervous system. So we can't dispute the fact that things can actually pass up the vagus nerve into the brain and back down. Other things like, I can see if there's nutrient deficiencies, which, are precursors to things like other neurotransmitter production. And like you said, inflammation is a huge thing, because when you get a leaky gut, you're going to get immune responses, you're going to get issues with inflammation, whether that's in the endothelial cells of your arteries, right up into your brain, and whether you produce amyloid plaques with different, if you're having a lot of sugar. I think Alzheimer's is now called, type 3 diabetes. So there is a definite link, but, it's all related, like you said.
It's all related.
Yeah.
By the way, we're at the time for the Seer News. So, Celeste, one of the things, and we talk about the Seer News, is things that are happening in our world, right? What is it that affects us all when we're thinking about global news, about our community news. The most important news, I think, that we should look at is what's happening with us. Everybody's like, what's happening over there? What's happening over here? Oh my God, there's a car crash. Oh my God, somebody got killed. But you know what? Our lifespan is so short that we forget to look internally. And we are talking about looking inward today, right? Looking at the blood. And I think when we look at the Seer News, what are we seeking, right? Because Seer's to seek. What are we really looking for? I know personally, every day I'm looking is how can I make my life better? Yes, I want to help other people. And by me looking inward, I'm able to help more people. So what are your thoughts? And I also would love to get Michelle's thoughts on today's news. What is one of the things that we should be looking for?
What was it, Michelle, or for me first?
Either one. Let's go. Let's go. Celeste, go.
Well, I mean, you just said what are we looking for? What are we seeking for? And for me, the first thing that came up was happiness as well. Happiness within the community, things we can celebrate together. Any excuse for us humans to have a table full of food and welcome guests, dress up, turn up the music, dance, right? That's great. Let's do it. So for the news for today, I decided just to remind people all around the world, it's the last few days of Diwali. Now, the Diwali season is Indian, but I love it because I love fireworks and I love sweets. Sorry, Michelle, I always eat them secretly when I'm not around. And that's the other coffee shops I go to.
That's when you have to do jumping jacks after you eat it.
That's right. So, I'm not here to talk about Rishi Sunak being the new Hindu UK Prime Minister, but I did want to mention that we are still in Diwali, everyone. And it's a beautiful looking into the history of celebrating, worshipping and prayer and love and offering. So offering people food and love and welcoming people into their homes and gifting someone. And so that's just a little news flash from me and going, if you need an excuse to celebrate and dance and get dressed up and have fireworks, you can. It's still Diwali season.
To be honest with you, I think you and I'm looking at Michelle smiling. I don't think any one of us needs an excuse to celebrate, right? To enjoy life. Life is so short, right? Michelle, what are your thoughts? What would you say is one of the common denominators, if you will, in the world right now that we should be looking at?
Oh, that's really interesting. I mean, I don't think we honor ourselves enough, maybe. I don't think we give ourselves the room and the space to just be. I think there's a lot of being for other people and a lot of giving, but I think there's not enough receiving of our own energy, of knowing when it's time for us to take a rest and allowing ourselves and having no guilt around that and letting, really honoring what our own needs are. And sometimes that's actually even more important than honoring what other people need, because we need to make ourselves whole or before we can give to others. So I think when we give ourselves the permission to honor ourselves, I think that is sort of the piece I think everybody in the world would probably relate to on some level.
Beautiful, beautiful. I just want to take a second out and let people know that Celeste and I are definitely looking for sponsors. So we're still looking for that person who wants to come out and just talk to us. But we want to have somebody who is there to help the world, to make a difference of how are we doing things. What's the difference into how we are going to be showing ourselves every day, are we making a difference in our world? What is that all about, right? So anybody who is interested in becoming a sponsor with us, please reach out either to Celeste or myself. The most important thing about what we're trying to do is to bring the truth the way we see it. Celeste and I, we decided to bring the show together to bring about some truth, because there is so much information out there, and not all of it is 100% true. And this is our truth. We're talking about the way we see the world, the way we see the news, the way we want to change things. And this is why we invited you today, because your guidance, your help, Michelle, is going to allow people to start to really look deeper into how we can make a difference. Before we start anywhere else, we have to start with us, right? So we have to know, is my blood count good? Do I have enough white blood cells? How is my cholesterol? All these different things. And you talked about gut health and how it all come together, right? Let's take care of us. Let's be more aware. Don't allow these big companies, and we talked about that last week as well, these big companies to influence us. Let us influence ourselves by seeking the truth. Therefore, that's why we're doing the Seer Show. And, thank you so much for being here today, by the way.
And, Michelle, you said the word guilt-free, to look after yourself first, guilt-free, and then others. And I really wanted to emphasize that, because I love the way you said that, because I believe a lot of people they're like a CEO of a big company, or I don't have time to seek. There may be a mother, they're a teacher. We have all these responsibilities, but we won't be able to do or host them or control them, or be part of that if we don't look after ourselves. So please be guilt-free, and analyze what's really going on in yourself for that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I work with a lot of stress professionals as well, who are really, burning the candle in multiple ends. Like, it's not just at work, but, they're going home, it's their family life, and then they've got some sporting commitment, and they've got a sick relative. And so these sort of things really add up for people, and they forget to take a break, or they don't think they're allowed to take a break, or they don't look after their health. And then I've seen on many occasions, health really declining, because, you've got to stop, and you have to be able to take care of it. You just can't get, I think I like to use the analogy of, you can't get dry in the shower. So while you're, all the barrages are coming at you, you're not going to get any better while you're doing that. We really have to sometimes strip back and give ourselves space, and allow ourselves to actually heal in that process, to come back a lot stronger. And then we've got more energy to sort of be able to give out to everybody else at the same time. So yeah, it's super important, and I see it all the time.
So let me ask you, and I know we kind of talked about it earlier a little bit. Before we came on live, we talked about, so many people ask you, what should they do or not do before they go and have a blood test? Let's talk. Celeste is cracking up over there. But what are some of the things, some of the myths, if you will, and then some of the truths?
Well, I can tell you some of the truths. So I'll start with that. I'll let Celeste talk about the myths. But from my standpoint, there's a few different things. So abstaining from food, so fasting for a lot of the tests will be necessary. So generally we'll fast for about 12 hours beforehand. I'd like everybody to not drink alcohol for 7 days before they get their tests. Also not to do any heavy exercise or sauntering for 3 days before they get their tests done as well. Now, the reason for some of these is because they can change the way the markers sort of show. So you can be dehydrated. If you train very hard or you have sauna, sometimes you're going to show some level of like a change in breakdown of muscle, so you'll be able to see that in the bloods. You might see some liver markers change also with alcohol or with certain amounts of exercise. So you don't want to do a really strong, heavy session within 3 days. Generally, if it's something light, that's not a problem. So yeah, there are a few things. Obviously, you want to be well hydrated, especially if you're going to have a few tests. But and also, if you're a female and we're doing female hormonal testing, ideally we get that done in a particular day of the cycle. So we have to sort of work out where they are in that cycle and sort of time that particular test. But they're the main guidelines I like to use in order to have the best results come out, so we know they're not being skewed by anything else.
Right. You did mention soda, right?
Soda?
Yeah.
No, sauna.
Oh, no sauna. Also,
No
but
sauna.
soda would also be a big factor in it, also because it's got so much sugar in it, right? Wouldn't that mess up the sugar count, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about fasting, that includes beverages as well. So it's literally water fasting for at least 12 hours prior. Yeah, but agreed, definitely.
And you said 7 days no alcohol. So that in itself could be for some people already the first step of confrontation and recovery. And, like that is also for some people the first step in going, yeah, I'm really going to work on myself, because even to get the blood tests, I need to look after myself.
I could take a blood test right now.
Yes.
Me too. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, it's been probably way over a month for me. I do have to say something very funny though, Michelle, because obviously I love doing my research, and I typed into Google, what should you not do before a blood test? This is Google, this is not Celeste. And it literally said, avoiding specific behaviors such as sexual activities. That was on March 2021. Is that true? You're not allowed to have sex before a blood test? Come on.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. And, I honestly don't know about Google sometimes either. So, I mean, I know that's another wormhole. But, yeah, no, unless you're doing something like real trickster, maybe, I don't know, like something really strenuous. Yeah, I don't know how that would affect it. Yeah. Sorry, Google.
But interesting that and the reason I typed that question into Google, because I thought it'd be interesting to ask Michelle, do you take the blood test while you're doing the same naughty things and the same lifestyle to really see the condition? But you actually saying, no, we want to actually try and detox your body to get the results. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to change. Like if you've got fatty liver, it's not going to change in 7 days. So, most things, 7 days abstinence from alcohol is not going to, really regress a lot of the more sort of larger issues. It's just more to be able to make sure we're not getting skewed readings because you had a big night out the night before or 2 nights before, which your liver is generally going to be upregulating a lot of enzymes and different things just to be processing that in that moment, which could make us think there's something maybe a little bit more serious going on rather than just taking it from a more baseline level, which is more ideal.
And the beautiful thing is, like, I don't know about America, but here in Australia with Medicare, you can do these blood tests for free as well, going to your doctor. So I think it's fascinating how you can also tell your clients that, bring your blood test to me and we'll go through it. Like, we have such a beautiful medical support in that way that there is no excuse anymore. Oh, really? I was just about to ask. I'm sorry, Raphael. We will pay you a flight to come to Australia.
It'll be cheaper than my blood test.
Yeah, probably. Wow. So in America, you pay for typical FBCs and CBCs?
Yep. Everything. Oh, wow. We pay for everything. Everything.
Yeah.
We're definitely not as advanced as you guys are.
I was going to say, Australians in general are quite healthy, because well, I mean, we have the beautiful nature, so we're a lot more active, I believe.
Mm,
We're a very outdoor culture.
right.
Yet I did read some very disturbing um, from resources in saying that the obesity in children is starting. And that for me was so surprising, because I thought, living at the ocean, I see kids that go to, surf classes before
Mm,
they go to school. And by the way, to everyone in America, no, we do not jump on kangaroos to school. There is still, I think, Michelle, you'd be surprised. I mean, we have friends overseas. They truly believe Australia is still a wild jungle, and it's not. But Michelle, may I ask you, the education you give to your clients, wouldn't it be amazing if we start doing this with the younger generation,
mm,
to really start saying, guys, this is how you look like under a microscope. Isn't this fascinating? This is you.
Yeah, I think awareness is really important. And I think that even comes down to, a lot of the food choices that we make, which generally as children tend to trickle down from their parents, right? So the education piece has to come a lot from the parent as it trickles down. So, I find that a lot of the intervention that I do is generally movement and nutrition based. So pretty much everything we can do, it all comes down to the quality and the type of food that we're eating, and that can start at a very young age. So and it can affect your child's development, their learning. Are they getting the right nutrients? Are they getting enough fat? A lot of people, I think, don't have enough fat in their diet. I think everyone's a little bit scared of fat. Fat
mm,
in itself is really, really important for our brains. Our brains is pretty much all fat, made of fat. And we need fats to produce all our hormones. So everything from, vitamin D through to our sex hormones, through to our adrenal hormones, thyroid, they're all made from fat and fat soluble vitamins. So it's really important that we're getting really good quality sources of fat from animals even. I'm a big believer in animal products, because there is a lot of bioavailability that comes through a really well-raised animal that we actually can't get through a lot of vegetables and fruits. So and there's a lot of also gene polymorphisms that we have that sometimes don't allow us to convert certain plant-based vitamins into their more bioavailable form as well. I think a lot of people don't quite understand that I think it's 40% of the population can't, process beta carotene into the bioavailable form of vitamin A called retinol. So, if you're a plant-based, which, we can always work with, it's just all about supplementation as well. But if we're just going off food sources, we're thinking we're eating a lot of vitamin A, but some of it you don't know unless you know your gene type, whether or not that's actually converting in your body at the same time. And there's a host of other things that kind of, when you're looking at different foods, how they can affect how much nutrients are actually, coming from those and being stored in the body and being utilized correctly. And that also plays into things like, do you have enough stomach acid? Most people that I see, it's pretty much almost blanket everybody has some sort of issue with their stomach acid, which is sort of like one of your first defense mechanisms and the first piece of the digestion, which really sets you up for the rest of like your digestive journey and your gut health as that goes through. Stomach acid stops us from stops pathogens, but with the acid really stops any of that sort of going back into to the lower, like upper intestine. And then it also is really important for B12 assimilation, for our zinc. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in the stomach before it even goes down to the other system. And without enough acidity in our stomach, our bile isn't sufficient, our pancreatic enzymes aren't sufficient. So it really affects the rest of the digestive tract as it goes down. So there's so many things that come from food, that come from, how we are assimilating everything in our digestion, that really affects the rest of our body. That just, it doesn't even seem sometimes that, oh, is that why, I'm getting some ailment over here? Yeah, it's just because you've got low stomach acid. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah. You know, to find answers to a lot of the questions that we are talking about, and for anybody out there who really wants to dive deep, I just put up the your link, which is thebiocoach.com.au/registration. And the registration, the reason you have that there is because this way people can go and register and you can reach out to them, right? How important is it for someone to truly find what is going on with them? Because you said that, you know, maybe they can't lose weight, maybe they keep feeling this way, all these different things are going on, and they've gone to so many different specialists and all these things, but maybe the real deep dive by let's put air quotes on that, by a detective like Michelle, is to really go deep, deep, deep into that which flows through our body entirely the whole time. Because, you know, we don't think about our blood. And I said that in the beginning, right? We don't really think about our blood. We don't think about our heart. We don't think about our gut until we actually feel something, right? You know, the heart is pumping, right? It's making all this blood flow through our body. And people think like, oh, I got a little cut. Yes, you cut something. And maybe, you know, we have different blood infections and all these different things that can happen with our body. So if you want deeper answers to your questions, who better to call than Michelle, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And I think I was saying earlier, I do all my consults like 100% online. So I work with people from all around the world, you know, not just in Australia. I work with people in the UK, in the US, even sort of South America, like anywhere is I'm able to sort of work with people because I'm able to either set up Zoom calls or I can do it all virtually, and I do this all the time. So yeah, it's something, and that's why I put the registration. It's so that anyone from around the world is able to reach out, and I'll be able to get in contact with them from there, and you know, have a little bit of a conversation around, you know, what is it that that's coming up for them, and you know, what do they need help with, or do they just want a general checkup just to see what's actually going on? You know, like sometimes we forget that we don't need to have an ailment to better ourselves or to be, you know, truly optimized.
I think that's really important to mention, Michelle. You know, with this episode, we want to inspire people. Don't wait until you have a sickness or you're in pain and then call Michelle. Please do call Michelle when you're at that stage. But this is so interesting. Like, you can find out everything inside of yourself. So it's also there for prevention. So what a beautiful way in working together with a bio coach in looking, where am I at right now? You know, like I'm 39 turning 40. I want to know more about what's going on with my body, because you do change, you know, in certain chapters in your life. I think every, you know, 7 years or so, you know, everything changes. So I truly want to invite people to also do this with you, Michelle, for prevention and just out of curiosity, you know, learn more about yourself. And as we always said, if you can trust yourself, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thinking about changing our diet, changing our habits. For some people, it's extremely difficult because they've gotten into the habit. They sit down to watch a television show or a movie. What is the first thing they do? They pick up a bag of some junk, right? Or, you know, all this, you know, they see a commercial and they're like, oh, I want some of that. And so we have all these habits of how we should do our food intake. We don't even think sometimes. Maybe instead of saying, you know, I'm going to grab just a little handful and put the bag away, they're like, I'll just have the bag here and I'll just keep going. And they keep chewing and chewing. All of a sudden they're like, oh, I ate half a bag, or I ate the whole bag. All of a sudden, life becomes a habit, but it's the things that we can do on a daily basis. And for me, it's changing the habits. It's changing our lifestyle so we can live a better life, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. That it really comes down to that. It's, and it doesn't all have to happen at once. Things can be done incrementally. It doesn't have to be such a big change. We can work on, the motivation behind it, and what people want for the next, chapter of their lives. Like, how would they like that to look, and how can we move in that direction sometimes? And they can start with some small things, and then later move into better things once some results start happening. They get a bit more confident, and you can sort of slowly add a bit more in. So it doesn't have to be a big change all at once, and it doesn't have to be scary. It can be gradual, which sometimes is better because it tends to last a lot longer.
Well, a best example with Raphael, the lady, she won the money, but she didn't do the journey for
Right.
the right reasons. And I do believe sometimes we see all these big diets lose X amount in a short time, but if it's not embedded into new, healthy, natural habits, as soon as that diet is over, you're gonna be back the person you were. So I personally would say the slower the change is probably the more solid and better.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things that I teach people how to achieve a goal. And people have a goal of, let's say I want to lose 30 pounds, or I want to earn an extra $1,000 a month, or whatever it is, right? I want to buy this material thing. And so what I tell them is celebrate the little goals along the way, right? So if you want to lose 30 pounds, and don't go, oh yeah, I lost a pound of weight last week. No, celebrate that. That's a great thing. You lost a pound. Wow, just do me a favor. Don't go looking for it again. You lose it, keep it away, right? Celebrate the small wins. Every day is a small win. Listen, I got up this morning, and what did I do? I celebrated the fact that I got up, right? The fact that I'm alive. And when I took my shower, yes, cold shower, people, so that I
Right.
can feel alive. I can feel the tingling in my body. I can feel the energy. Listen, it's for me, it is, around 5:30 and, AM. And some people like, I cannot get up at that time, and that's okay. You got to live your life the way you need to live it, but you have to be two things: productive and happy.
And
That's
happy.
all I say, right?
May I share a quick slide on that when you said I can feel that energy of the cold water? And we were talking about this fascinating world of seeing the blood cells, being
Yes.
larger, smaller, active, different colors. These are examples. Like I love thematic, and it shows vibration of words or music in liquid or blood. And again, I believe with this episode, please, I hope people walk away and go, I want to see my blood. I want to understand more. And by doing the coaching of, like you said, motivation, that's also the vibrational impact onto our blood and our system and our organs and our beating heart and our heart chakras, right? So that's all part of it as well, looking through the microscope and really going, this is me, this is my energy, this is my vibration. My vibration's not the best when I have a cold shower. I tell you that it's usually close to a heart attack. I really struggle. I do them, but I still struggle. I only started recently, but I've given myself a 12-month slow process to be one of these people who does ice buckets at least once a week. So I'm starting with the cold showers every day. So
Small win. Small win.
That's
Right.
Lots of vibration though when that cold water comes.
You know, Michelle, thank you so much for being our guest today. And, you know, I got to tell you, I think that we are going to definitely have to have you join us again at another time, right? Because for us, it's about bringing a different perspective. So we are asking people who know someone who can bring that different perspective. Come join us. Let us know. Connect with us, right? You know, collect your friends. Come around your computer or wherever it is you're looking at this, or put on your headphones and listen to the show on Spotify, on Amazon, on all these different platforms that we're on. Come find us. Look for what we're doing. We are helping everybody to get out of their own comfort zone, find the truth about who you are. We inspire you to become the most amazing person that you can be, right, Celeste?
Yes, absolutely. I'm in with you on that one.
Yeah, yeah. Michelle, before we go, what would you say is one of the things, a key takeaway that you have from all your studies, all your endeavors into blood?
Oh, the key takeaway. I don't know, like just to find out, just to get it done. Like let's have a look. I mean, I think it's hard to put into words, but for me, it's all about, you know, the patterns and what we see. So I like to say to people, get it done. Let's have a look. Let's actually dive under the hood, and let's not just, you know, work surfacely. Let's really go deep. So for me, it's all about deep diving, getting really curious about our bodies, and yeah, that's just the way I've always worked. So yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Being curious about your own uniqueness under the microscope. Fascinating.
Correct.
It is. It's like my fingertips. They're
Yes.
unique, right? We all have our own fingerprint, and our blood tells our own story. You know, we are every Tuesday. We're here. We're live. Celeste is all the way out in the evening. I am in the morning, and we're trying to connect our worlds because, and you know, you ladies spoke about earlier. You were hours apart, but in reality, we're all here at the same time. Let's connect. Let's unite. Let's make our world a better one with the
Yes.
actions that we do today. Let's make it better for tomorrow.
Yep. Sounds good.
Great.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And next week, we have some fun things. I think we're going to talk about mushrooms. What?
Yes.
I
Well,
think we're going to
yes.
have a blast.
Don't give away too much. It's very environmental based, but yes, we're talking about all kinds of mushrooms. That is correct.
Wow. Yeah. No, just come, be prepared to learn, to inspire you to become better, right?
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Have an amazing rest of your evening, ladies, and everybody have an amazing rest of your day.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
guys. Thanks for having me.
Bye to Byron.
Bye.
Ciao.